This week we've got 3 tips to help you with cervicogenic headache patients. Hi, this is Tim from ChiroUp, and I'd like to share with you my 3 top tips for getting your patients better quicker. The first tip is number 1, let's make sure that we're assessing that patient's deep neck flexors. That the deep neck flexors are a group of core stabilizers in the neck. It consists of the longest capitis and the longest colli. And those muscles together help to provide stability for your patient's neck. They provide the flexion, and if those muscles are weak or inhibited, we oftentimes see hypertonicity in the extensors, like the suboccipital muscles. And since the greater occipital nerve pierces that muscle, we're going to have a problem when it's too tight. So how do we evaluate that? Well, really simple. We have the patient lie on their back and look at their toes. What we're looking for is a nice smooth reversal of the cervical curve with a chin tuck as the patient flexes their head. What we don't want to see is that patient jutting their head forward in order to achieve that same position. That's engaging the SCM, it's engaging the superficial spinal stabilizers, and that's not necessarily a good thing. So if they have this problem, what do? We teach them how to do this better. We have them lie on their back, tuck their chin, and look at their toes with a nice smooth reversal of their cervical curve. We basically have them practice the functional tests that they're going to need to perform later. The number 2 tip that I have for you is to make sure we don't forget to suboccipital nerve floss. That a lot of times when somebody's had an irritation in the area for a long period of time, there are adhesions that develop between that greater occipital nerve and the tissues around it, especially if there's been trauma. A new article told us that this is very common. So the way that we're going to address this is by having the patient lie on their back. We're going to hold their head, they're going to move their hands toward their chest, and when we flex their head, we're stretching the top portion of that nervous system. We then have them extend their hands as we move their head into extension, which puts some relaxation into the upper cervical cord. So by doing this back and forth, we're getting some motion in the cord, we're getting some motion of those muscles, and we're hopefully breaking up some of those adhesions that have developed over a period of time. The next thing that we're going to do is to make sure that we empower our patient, because let's face it, we can do all of these things, but unless the patient's willing to change their posture, they're probably going to have an ongoing problem. All too often, from sitting at a workstation for a prolonged period of time, they look like this. They develop tight, short pecs and traps with then inhibition of the scapular stabilizers and the deep neck flexors. So you and I can treat them, but we're not going to have lasting change unless we empower that patient to be an active participant. The way that I describe it to my patients is it's as though your cervical spine was a telephone pole or a post, and your head was a bowling ball that sat on top of that post. If the post was nice and upright, we have no problem. But if you dump that post forward so that it's leaning forward and the ball now rolls off the front of that post, somebody's got to hang on to that all day long. And that somebody who's hanging on to that bowling ball that's rolled off the front of a post all day long is not happy about that arrangement. So hopefully the patient can understand what's going on, but more importantly, what they need to do. They need to modify their workstation. They need to make sure that, number 1, they've not created too much distance between their eye and their monitor. A lot of times patients will push their monitor way back in order to have plenty of workspace. Well, that means that their focal distance hasn't changed, so they need to move their head forward in order to keep their screen in focus. That moves the bowling ball off the front. Number 2, we can't be working on a laptop that's sitting on the desk or a short monitor. That's going to cause us to look downward, and ideally that top line of type should be at about eye level or maybe 10 degrees below. And number 3, we need to make sure their shoulders are relaxed so that when their arms are dropped, their elbows can be bent at 90 degrees and reach the work surface, so that they're not holding their arm up for an extended period of time. Hope these tips help. If you're a ChiroUp subscriber, simply log into your account and you'll be able to check out any of the videos. If you're not yet a subscriber, we would love to have you on board. If you go to ChiroUp.com, sign up for the trial, we'll get you connected right away.